How do you think we're doing overall when it comes to the advice and recommendations that you see are being put out there for skincare and sunscreen and just preserving the youthfulness of skin in general? Is it just as much of a minefield as the nutrition sphere is, or do you generally see pretty good information being put out?
I mean, absolutely. It really depends on your algorithm, right? So I think that I tend to see pretty good advice because a lot of the people that I follow are doctors and dermatologists, and it's not all perfect advice, but on average, it's pretty good. But I see some things that my friends send me, just very concerning skincare tips that are likely harmful.
Did you see the salmon? People are injecting salmon fat into their face.
Salmon sperm.
Salmon sperm, nonetheless, into their faces. Do you think that's sound advice? Something people should try?
So that is not salmon sperm in its entirety. What they do is they extract the nucleic acids, like the DNA from salmon sperm. And I don't remember the exact rationale for it, but the DNA that comes from salmon sperm is most biocompatible with us. So least likely to cause an immune response. It might be due to some modifications to the DNA that they don't have that would tip our immune system off. I would need to look that up, but that is an approved treatment in Korea. And yeah.
Does Korea lead the way in a lot of this stuff?
I think Korea invests the most time and money into this kind of stuff. And a lot of the products are really good, but I think that there is like a return on investment curve, you know what I mean, for a lot of things. And I think that a lot of the things that I see in Korean skincare are unlikely to be effective.
Right. Is most of the research that's being done in dermatology, is it related to specific skin conditions like acne and rosacea, things like of that nature, or are you seeing is most of the funding going into compounds and products in the kind of more anti-aging youthfulness world?
It depends on the type of research. Like you see a lot of anti-aging papers, but they're generally small studies like funded by industry. So I tend to read a lot of those papers because those are the ones that my audience sends me a lot to talk about. But higher quality papers are generally done on skin diseases. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's getting increasingly confusing for consumers. Like say you walk into Sephora, right? Not to name one store in particular because they're all kind of following the same trend here where the majority of the brands have a before and after photo and X% saw a reduction in wrinkles or X% saw improvement in pigmentation and then underneath it a citation of a study. So you're spending time looking at a lot of these studies that are being conducted by companies, and this is a very broad question, so it's not specific to one company or one study, but generally speaking, what are the quality of these studies, and are they more marketing than science, or are these companies legitimately investing in good science?
I think in general, the science isn't great. I think you can read them critically and make an assessment. And I think in science, the one thing you can trust is that when you read the paper, they generally did what they described and they got the results that they're telling you about. But their conclusions are what we need to scrutinize more. What does this really mean, for our skin? Or was this the right way to test this particular question? And a lot of times it's not. So like, for example, in a lot of studies where they're testing like topical peptides really don't penetrate the skin well. Some of them might penetrate well enough to have an effect. But one thing about peptides is they moisturize the skin, and it doesn't matter what peptide it is. So a peptide, going back, is sort of a chain of amino acids, and amino acids are like small proteins, and our body uses them as signaling molecules. So a certain order of amino acids is almost like a key in a lock for a receptor to tell our skin cells to do something. And so these papers are trying to say that they've made this special key that unlocks some special attribute of skin, right? It causes some change in your skin. when in fact, this key might not be even getting under the skin. It might be sitting on top of the skin. And that could be just as well a cheap collagen peptide or something like that, as well as some expensive synthesized peptide that they make. And the way that you tell the difference is by using the exact same vehicle, but using a peptide control. So just some random peptide or collagen peptide or something. So you can see if it's better than that. You know what I mean? Because every peptide you apply to the skin is basically going to moisturize your skin. It's going to make it, because your skin's hydrated, reduce wrinkles a little bit, things like that. If they're not comparing it to a random peptide, then it's hard to say like how effective it really is.
This episode is proudly brought to you by 38 Terra. Try 38 Terra's DMN prebiotic, the science-based daily multivitamin for your gut microbes, a simple and delicious way to take your gut health to the next level. Now back in stock in new and improved packaging for customers living in the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Get 10% off your DMN at 38terra.com using the code THEPROOF. That's 38terra.com and use the coupon code THEPROOF for 10% off. Right, that makes me think of ingestible collagen, which we'll come to. But early on, a lot of the studies were comparing consumption of collagen against nothing, as opposed to against whey protein or some other equivalent gram of a different protein. So in that instance, it's presumably very hard for the average person to walk into a store like Sephora and know if what they're buying is actually effective and worth the money that they're outlaying.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think is really hard to address, because that's really a scientific literacy issue. And I think if more people knew how to read and understand science, this wouldn't be as big of a problem. But that's such an enormous thing to overcome. That's a whole change to our education system.
Yeah, I think it's asking a little too much for everyone to have the however many years of training that's required to dig into literacy. It would, to me, seem like there just has to be better regulation around the claims that can be made, and then elevation of people like you that are actually communicating good information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's correct. I think that we need some minimal level of scientific literacy so that people can tell the difference between someone who's really engaging with the research and isn't, because I think a lot of the worst examples of skin and science influencers, they are using the language of science, in their descriptions. And people find that very compelling, even though they're not talking about real science,
What are the red flags that you notice that might be clues for when someone finds an account online that, maybe they're science-y, but they're not actually giving evidence-based recommendations?
I mean, mostly it's because I will see them and then I'll go to the literature and I'll be like, that's not what this says.
But are there any clues for a layperson?
A layperson. I think overly conclusive or dramatic claims, so a lot of people, when I say something, they'll be like, oh, isn't this harmful? And I'll be like, oh, there's no evidence of this causing harm. And they'll be like, they'll be confused about why I'm not so confident about that, even though this is something that maybe has been used for dozens of years and there really is no evidence. It's hard for me to say that this does not cause harm, not because I'm not as certain as one could even be, but just because that's the language of science. And so I think people that make really strong, dramatic claims is a red flag.
Yeah, that's a conflation of uncertainty with not being well read and well-versed on a topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not true. Like you say, uncertainty is a part of science and good communication.
Yeah, because we were talking about earlier with nutrition science, the field is never going to be complete, or every scientist's job would be done already.
Yeah, and it would be boring.
Right. And so the more you know about a field, the more you realize what the field doesn't know, and you get less and less certain. Mm-hmm. And so someone who really understands the limits of their knowledge and the limits of the knowledge in that field, that's a big green flag.
Have you seen the like Dunning-Kruger curve.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that speaks to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning, when you start studying something, you absorb a whole lot of information at once and you think, gosh, I understand it all. And you want to, shout about it to everyone. And then as time goes on, and that's the highest confidence you'll ever have. Yeah. Time goes on, you're accumulating more and more and more information and your confidence is just coming down.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't they call that the top amount stupid? Right, when you get introduced and learn about something.
Yeah, all the time I see people like making the just trolls of my comments, and I want to just comment, you're Dunning-Kruger so hard, my friend. I wish I could help.
Too many trolls to address.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you make skincare because I've been purchasing and promoting your skincare by word of mouth since the day I tried it. And I trust you because of the way you communicate. You don't use absolutes and you say that depends, and you use the language that Simon was just referring to, which is really helpful, which some people get confused as to if you know something or not because you're seemingly uncertain. But when it comes to your skin products that you promote and when it goes into creating these products, what is your concern? Is it more skin health or beautification? And is there a difference between the two?
I mean, I think that they overlap a lot, definitely. I think when we're talking about beauty, there's so much more that goes into it besides just the skin, you know what I mean? Your attitude and personality is a part of it, and your style, all that. But when we're talking about skin, I think healthy skin is beautiful skin. And a lot of what I'm trying to do is make the skin healthier in my skincare products, for sure.
Yeah. What's your favorite skin product that you make?
Well, my favorite one is the one that I have available now called Slug Plus. And so that is an occlusive moisturizer for nighttime use. So it's similar to, if you're familiar with slugging, you definitely are. What I wanted to do was make a high-end skincare product to slug with, because most people just slug with Vaseline if they do slug, but that turns a lot of people off. Vaseline doesn't seem like a high-end skincare product, and also that's a whole step in your skincare routine that could be used as a vehicle for so many effective skincare active ingredients. And so I wanted to make a complete high-end skincare product for slugging specifically, and so that's how Slug Plus was born.